Right, we're just having a little bit of a play with DigitalOcean, so let's just sign up there. Here we go. So you're using DigitalOcean for its online server capability, droplets. So I'm going to create a droplet. Just wait for that to catch up with itself. Here we go. I'm going to create a new Ubuntu image. I'm going to use the lowest available size, so the smallest size, the 512 megabyte one CPU with 20 gigabytes of storage and 1000 gigabytes in terms of the transfer, which it seems a large number. We're going to go to London. Not going to set anything here in terms of the additional options as yet, but we are going to secure shell into this, so it's wise to have a secure shell, and for that we're going to need a key. So we can generate a new key. So I can get that key in fact from the keys that I've established already for Putty, and we can see we've got some of the Putty's private keys, PPK files. There's also pub files as well, that's the public keys. So if we have a look at that public key in Word, we can actually see, or WordPad, we can see that it starts and ends, and there's the actual key information. Oh, sorry, there's the actual key information with a comment or description above. So that's the bit that I'm really interested in. Now the way it's presented here within the actual pub file, you cannot import that directly into DigitalOcean, you just throw it out so it's a wobbly. So the way I get around that is I bring up PuttyGen, the key generator, and I load in one of those keys. So if we bring in the cloud.key3 and open that, we can see that's bringing in, that was a PPK file, so that's bringing in the private key, but also we'll see the public key as part of that. So we can see there is the public key as before. Well, in fact, there is the public key as before with a couple of extra tags around the outside. Now this format, if we copy that in its entirety, so Control C that across, and then sort of drop those out of the way, what we can do is we can then bring that straight into the secure shell key file that we need. Give that a name, so any old name, my pub key, so I know what it is, and then add that. If there's anything wrong, it'll flag this up, but as there isn't anything wrong, what we can see is actually added to the list here in terms of the keys. So when we create this server, which it's doing now, so we'll see this line go, and we'll get the IP address, which is important information because that'll allow us to secure shell into that particular node. So we'll wait for that to finish, which won't take very long with this particular size. It's nearly there, and there it is. There's the IP address. If you come alongside that, you see the copy field. Click on copy, of course. And then what we're going to do with that is we're going to pull up Putty. So if we bring Putty into play and we put that IP address in, and if we go into the connections and data, we could say, well, we're logging on as root. And when we get into the SSH settings, if we come down to auth and browse, we can pick up that cloud.key, the public key file that we brought in earlier, and where we extracted so the private key where we extracted the public key from before, and then we can bring that into play. And what we should see is we should see a Putty screen, and we get this warning to start off with, alert. So yes to that, and that brings up a full-blown command line. This is where we're at, so let's see what the users are, what the groups are, and uname -a, and we can see it's on Ubuntu as required, as requested, and we can see where we are. There's a lot going on here. CD backup onto root, pwd, ls if you prefer, and you can see that we've got a fully fledged system that we can operate on. So we're able to sort of secure shell into that. If we have a look around now, I'm just going to exit out of there. So of course the server's still running in the cloud. We can see that here. This is that server. We can see that the CPU, no available data for this one at the moment, because that will build up over time. And so will the billing, of course, for this. In terms of access, we can see whether we've got console access. We can reset the root password. Then the power on, power off. We can see that we've got volumes. Then there's the ability to resize. So of course it'll afford extra money when we do that, but that's an interesting one to actually try out a little bit later. Networking, so we can see the IP addresses that we're using via this gateway. So we should be able to access that anywhere on the public internet because it's a public IP address. So you can set these servers up, you can set several of them up in one go. And then you can come back and use those servers to do whatever you need to do in terms of testing. So if you want to test out orchestration software such as Ansible, you can set up a set of servers. You can have Ansible on your own machine, in your own environment, and then you can task Ansible to task these online servers to add and remove applications and the like. So generally just take over the management of those nodes. So we can see, well, backups, backup images, snapshots. So as we go along, we're able to take a snapshot. There is a commercial offering to be able to download these snapshots, but as of yet, that's not been allowed for the individuals to be able to download those. Lots of requests for that, including myself, through to DigitalOcean. So we'll wait and see if the thousands of people actually get their way. Down through into history. We might want to destroy it, so remove it. There is another way of doing that as well, as we'll see. And down finally to any tags that we might have. So that's the sort of stuff that we've got now. IPv6 could be enabled. We've only got IPv4 running in here as well. We could do private addressing. If you're going to do private addressing, then you might require a floating IP address to get out. So that it'll effectively be NATed from the private address to the public address, the floating address. So that's the sort of stuff that we can do. Also under to the right hand side, we can see our little starfish. Underneath the starfish we've got settings. One of the interesting ones here is the security settings, because here we can see the secure shell key. We could have had certificates as well, of course. We can also see the security history, so this is some of the stuff that I've been doing, including the creation of the droplet just now, the addition of the key previous to that, the user logon a few minutes before that today. So this is an opportunity where we can actually manage those keys, so we can actually delete the key. Interesting. How will that help us? If we're looking for access into the device, you can actually just use password only access to get into there. So that is still an option that you have on here. But of course, as you're testing remotely, it's probably as wise to have secure shell just to make sure that somebody else who isn't scanning round, because there will be people watching these sites to see if they can scan around and find a vulnerable way in and hijack one of your servers. That could be an interesting reverse way in to your network. So there's a few things to watch out for, and you know, some of those things we can configure through settings. Other things we actually configure via the droplets at the top. We've got images. Okay, so we don't have any snapshots at the moment. Backups, yeah, networking. So we might want to have a look at that in more detail. Monitoring. For that, you might need to download apps onto servers in order to do the monitoring. The manual instructions are here for that. APIs, so applications and APIs. And of course, good old support. So we get through to the support center and make any requests. So lots more to do, but that will do for this first trial of DigitalOcean.